Thank you for tuning into the Comcats podcast, brought to you by Aghosta University's Communication Department. On today's episode, Behind the Scenes of Aghosta University, we will be talking about what it was like to make a fantasy podcast and why we chose to go about this the way that we did. So, everyone introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Cody Robertson, and I played Augustine and Simon Fowler and a couple other characters throughout Aghosta University.
Hello, my name is Isabel Brown. I voiced Ira Greer, and I narrated a couple of the episodes, and we all had a hand in writing it, so I'll just say everyone kind of wrote.
Yep, and I'm Schneider Hadfield. I voiced Cassie and Copeland and, a couple other characters as well. So, I guess one thing that I want to know is, what are you guys' favorite episodes that we recorded? What was your favorite episode that we did?
Three,
really?
Yeah.
Which one was 3?
With Cassian.
With Cassian?
Yeah.
That was my favorite too.
Yeah, that was a good one. I liked the first one too. Just kind of the novelty of it all was kind of fun, you know?
Yeah,
So
that one
was pretty
fun.
cool. Yeah. And then, I kind of did like the warning one because I liked what I was able to do with the sound effects in that one. And I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, I like that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, a close runner-up for me was definitely episode 2, A Nutty Situation with the squirrels.
Yeah, that was good.
Because we got to have Dean on the podcast, and that was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
Yeah, I actually had to miss that one because I was sick. So yeah, listeners, it's a little scoop here. But yeah, I wasn't actually in the studio. I was sick, but you wouldn't know that because I am fortunate enough to have a pretty nice mic at home. And we have awesome technology at AU. So you guys were able to all record. And then that night, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that night, I took the recordings and I was like, all right, let's do this. I recorded myself. And my wife at one point, my little office is downstairs. My wife sleeps upstairs. And it was late at night. And so I was recording the lines. And I had to record an Augustine line at one point. And, yeah. So she was like,
super deep growl.
Yeah, exactly. So my wife was like, what was that? She called me and I was like, what is going on? I was like, you know what? Just go back to bed. It's fine. Yeah, that was really funny. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, episode 2 was pretty fun too. It was a good one. Yeah. I'm sad I missed Dean in person. So.
It was pretty good to watch. It was pretty entertaining.
He's great.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fantastic actor, and his improv skills are top level.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked, and I got to edit that too. So I liked.
I edited that one.
But I had to figure out where his voice and mine were gonna go and stuff.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
I was stand-in Cody for everyone.
Oh yeah,
so.
Nice. Oh yeah, I think I did hear it on the track.
There was one part where your track was still a little bit, and I tried to make your volume lower so you couldn't really hear it if you were listening.
Yeah, I tried not to be too loud, but I figured something was gonna.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It was like a little whisper, and I was like, you know what? Cool. Yeah. I love that she's here with us.
What did you guys, speaking of that, what did you guys think was hard to kind of get used to with recording? Distance from the mic and stuff like that was kind of weird. And, just kind of your little background noises was kind of weird to get used to for me and stuff. Learning to kind of stay still. There you go, right there. Right?
Literally that, yeah. Learning to stay still was one of my biggest problems. I wear rings, and all the time they would hit the mic or hit the table, and then it would make this weird pop or ring sound, and I'd feel really bad, but it was fine. I learned from it a little.
Trying not to breathe obnoxiously.
What do you mean?
That. I tend to do exhale laughs a lot. So if I'm trying to keep a straight face and I'm trying not to laugh, it comes out as this wheeze, this windy wheeze.
The windy wheeze. Yeah.
Another challenge for me was maintaining the same character voice. If I had a character that would speak a certain way, keeping that consistent, especially if I was voicing more than one character at a time, was very tricky.
Yeah, for sure. I in this last episode 4, I had to do Augustine and my other character, and so I kind of the main character was a normal voice, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, I think I changed it during the podcast too, because I think I threw in a tiny little accent, and then it just I don't know, it just naturally went away. Mm-hmm. But I think I listened back to the recording, can't really notice, but I remember it being that, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that's just kind of weird to get used to. But yeah, trying to keep your voice consistent is kind of difficult if you're trying to do a different voice that's not your own, you know what I mean?
That's one of the reasons why I didn't really like voicing Willow, because I kept trying to change it to something without realizing it. And so even though she was my favorite to play, just maintaining the Willow voice without it sounding weird.
Yeah. Yeah. You want it to sound clear and everything. And you got to say a voice that you can actually say.
Right.
So I guess it's got to sound like you a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's just weird to find that balance of like what sounds good, what's not like deceiving to, portray my voice as, if that makes sense. I don't know. So that was pretty fun. But I really liked the variety of the voices that we got to do in the whole time. And playing the narrator is pretty fun too. I like that a lot.
Narrating was a good time. I think I only narrated like one episode, but I liked narrating. It was kind of fun to be the storyteller.
Writing it was fun too. I enjoyed writing it whenever I wasn't on such a tight deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite episode to write, and it's probably because I only wrote half of it, was the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was a short one too. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I liked it a lot, because that was just that was a 10-minute one. So I was just like, oh, this will be like, kind of a short and sweet little thing. And that was kind of fun. And then I remember episode 2 started and it was the first 20-minute episode. And I was like, oh, man, twice as long now. So it was kind of rough. That
it was
second
a
episode.
pain.
Yeah.
I lost so much sleep over that episode.
For real.
I remember you stressing a little bit about it, and I really wanted to help, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, I just needed rubber ducks to talk to, and
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, because I like to know people's input on their characters, which is why I kept going like, do you have a name? What's your character like? Because I don't want to write out a character that you can't jive with, which is why I was like, edit the podcast how much you need, because I don't want to give a character that would suit Schneider to Cody or Cody to Addison.
Right.
So that's why I was constantly like, give me names,
Right.
give me like accents.
I definitely think you have the strongest like world building skills in terms of producing our scripts. Because the one that I primarily wrote, it was fun to write. I enjoy writing like plots and stuff, and like, there's magic, there's all sorts of things that all sorts of avenues you can take to kind of like tell your story. But yeah, that was kind of stressful for a little bit, having to write that script. Also, I got a really bad migraine towards the end of it, so finishing it was kind of a struggle for me. But I did it, and I liked it, so I'm proud of that.
I still think it's really funny you asked for help, and then when I got there, you didn't even wait for me to finish lunch. You were just like, I got it done. And like,
It's exactly
good?
what you said. I just need people there to like hold me accountable, that I need to finish my work. If you're there, I'll finish it. If I'm struggling by myself, maybe I won't. I don't know.
Because sometimes you just need to verbalize what you're thinking about to actually get it on paper properly. Because you have the idea in your head, but you don't know how to describe it. So you try describing it to someone who can interact with you and say, hey, that works, or let's try something along these lines. This makes a little bent more sense.
Yeah. Also, writing characters was kind of fun for me. Mine were kind of like, general personalities, not super specific, because I just wanted to write the story and get the plot across, but it was still fun to come up with the characters and kind of build relationships between them too.
Yeah, I really liked, I felt like writing the script was the hardest thing by far, because it was just such a unique challenge to have to do that, as opposed to probably the other podcasts in the same class we're in, right? Would just do like a traditional interview podcast like this style, right? Which, not to knock it or anything, but editing that is a lot more simple than...
Yeah, especially with the soundscapes.
Exactly,
and
yeah. Then like putting in sound effects and like actually putting in scripted and timed content and stuff like that is, there's just a lot more bells and whistles going on with writing a script for a fantasy than as opposed to an interview. So that was a pretty unique challenge. And yeah, that was definitely the hardest part for me. So I wasn't surprised when you were like, can you please help? And I definitely at some point was like, I need help too. Because it was like, oh man, it was a lot, especially those 20-minute episodes. It's pretty.
It was very ambitious. I did not realize that it was going to be like 20-minute episodes consistently after that second one. I thought we were going to go to like 15 or like varying lengths. Something that would make it seem a little bit more achievable, because a lot of fiction audio podcasts that I listen to tend to be in the 15-minute, 10-minute range.
Yeah.
They do vary times quite often. It's because scripted content is like, different.
With certain exceptions. Now, I know some of them that will go up to 30 minutes or longer, but most of them that I've listened to are like 20 at most.
So we'll come back and do an hour for like a reunion. Or we'll do like a D&D campaign with our characters or something.
Hey,
that'd be kind of cool.
That's rising.
Don't be putting good ideas in my head now.
I mean, I'd be down for that. Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I have 2 characters that are living silently and alone on their character sheets.
Nice. As they do until you get them, until they're needed. Well, Isabel, you got some questions for us that you prepared. So how about we get to the first question?
All right. So basically, the first question was, how did the idea of Aghosta University came to be? Which is interesting because it was a little bit of everything. Everyone had an idea of what they wanted, and we kind of conglomerated it together.
Yeah, as soon as he kind of said we had freedom to pick what content we would share on our interviews as long as it like related back to Aghosta University, I was kind of curious because I enjoy stories. I like reading. I like, movies, TV. I like following stories. And I was kind of like, well, if it has to relate to Aghosta, if it was like a parallel universe sort of thing that, still kind of told the same stories that students here have, but in these magical, mystical ways, I thought that would be kind of fun.
Yeah. I'm going to give credit to Schneider and Isabel on this one, 100%, because you two just like kind of ran with it. And like, I remember, y'all wanted me to be in the group because we knew each other from before. Mm-hmm. And then I remember like coming up to you guys and being like, no, we got an idea. And I was like, oh, sweet. And you're like, yeah, let's do a fantasy style Aghosta University. I was like, oh, so in right now. So
it was more work, but I think it was worth it because I like the product that we were able to achieve.
Yeah.
And I could tell we were able to hold on to more attention than we might have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that like, a traditional interview style podcast is more boring than like a fantasy podcast.
No, not at all.
It's not that. It's just like sometimes as in normal conversation, you kind of, your mind wanders. But if there's something constantly gripping you back in, you kind of lose that chance.
Yeah. We already kind of discussed what was our favorite parts and what was kind of difficult. So what's some things that you wished happened or you wish didn't happen about the podcast? Because, hindsight's 2020, something we realized we enjoyed looking back or we wish were included or wasn't included. So the fight scene in episode 3 is mine.
We had to cut a lot. Yeah, we had to cut a lot from episode 3. I remember having to make all those cuts too. And I was like, oh my goodness.
I still like the episode and like the way that we turned it in and everything.
Yeah.
But I do miss some of that content. It got pretty gnarly for a second in there and I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun. I was thinking about uploading like a director's cut or something.
Like, that'd be kind of funny. That
would be lit if you wanted to.
I still have the cut, I'm pretty sure. So I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
Basically, in case that we decide not to do it, I basically narrated the transformation of the Notcast into like this creepy creature that was like drenched in ichor and like there was supposed to be cracking noises and it was about to be a little bit more obvious that Augustine ate him, but he still did. It's just it was
how
a little
we
bit
got
more
there, yeah.
It was a little bit more blatant instead of just him coming out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. It's still one of my favorite episodes regardless.
Yeah.
That's just one of the challenges we had to face, had to cut some content. And it's so funny because I was freaking out about the time for that episode and I don't know why, because it turned out that everyone else's episode was over 20 anyway. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I could have just made it over 20. Dang. So I was a little mad, but it turned out good, I think. So, and we got a good grade. So
it did.
Another thing that hindsight is definitely 2020 about, when I wrote the script for the 4th episode, the emergency broadcast episode, I didn't even realize it until we were in the midst of recording. I only wrote one female character, and that kind of like very much limited who was going to narrate, who was going to be the extra voices. And it's like, it didn't really cause that much of a struggle, but I didn't even like, I probably should have paid more attention as to like what resources, and by resources I mean voices, like what voices could do what work and like how they would all as a team work together, because then maybe you wouldn't have had to have a conversation between yourself with 2 different voices. I didn't really think about that beforehand, but then I was in the room and I was like, oh, nah, thank you for making it work anyway.
Yeah, right. No, it was all right. Yeah, but there's little things you don't think about all the time like that, right? And like I said, like moving around all the time, it's just something you kind of naturally do that we forget about all the time. But yeah, I just wish I had a little more time to add some stuff that I'd like to have in there. That some of the episodes, like, a lot of stuff had to get cut because that's just how it goes. But like, if obviously I think if we all had our way, we would have every single thing that we could possibly have in every single episode. So yeah, and adding the sound effects is really fun. It actually like, I feel like I got pretty good at it eventually. Like I got pretty fast, and I like, ended up, I have auditioned at home. So I ended up like, making a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that we would use for our podcast specifically, and to like mute stuff.
That's
and
like high tech stuff.
Yeah.
Right
I was getting into it. So it was pretty fun.
Like, it could have been me. One thing I wish, this is not about the class. This is about my personal failing. My laptop cannot handle Adobe Audition.
Right.
It's meant to be like an art laptop. And for some reason, Microsoft decided to skip over my laptop's model. So it's still running on Windows 10. It won't let me download Windows 11, like straight up.
Oh.
So like in a year or two, like I'm looking at new laptops now, but like this is not going to be a good laptop to bring to school eventually because security risk and such.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's going to be demoted to my art tablet.
There you go.
Eventually.
It won't run Audition though.
Yeah.
Still won't run Audition.
Yeah.
One thing about Audition, especially with the sound effects, that was my first time ever audio editing. I had done video editing once, but again, that's still not a lot of experience. It was definitely a process to like teach myself the functions of Adobe specifically in audio space and not audio video space. And adding the sound effects was really fun, but I felt kind of like burnt out at the end of it. I was like, there are like 37 sound files downloaded onto my laptop right now. I will never use this again. It's squirrels chittering. Yeah. I never need that ever again.
I actually did use some of the old ones for the last episode. So there you go.
Yeah. But it was kind of fun too. I like now like being able to be like, I know how to use this software. So I think it's a good thing that I got the chance to learn Audition.
I think we got good skills. I got to flex my voice a little bit, which was fun. I've always kind of wanted to do voice acting before, but I never really knew how.
You have a very narrative voice.
Oh, thank you. Oh, whatever. It's fine. Yeah. I've always been enamored by that world. I saw this one documentary on Netflix one time. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, it's called I Know That Voice. Really good documentary. Check it out. It's on I don't know if it's on Netflix still.
That's a good name.
Yeah. It's just about voice acting, and it like super sold me on it. I was like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. Never really knew how to get into it. And then finally this course kind of falls in my lap. And and then you two are like, we're going to do fantasy. We're going to do voices. I was like, all right, get out of my head, man. Like, seriously.
This isn't funny. How'd you know?
Yeah, how did you know? Like, for real.
I always wanted to be, not always wanted. My interest as a child always like rotated like one of those merry-go-rounds. But one of my interests was voice acting, and I love to write, and I enjoy podcasts. So I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to learn a little bit. Because, we don't get a lot, as far as I'm aware, opportunities to voice act in Augusta specifically. I know if you go to Atlanta, but you have to kind of break into it.
Yeah, that's more of like pursuing an art instead of like in your education acquiring the skills for a career. Like there's kind of a little bit of a difference there, but I really liked it. I like, all the voices, all the recording and everything.
I enjoyed it. Maybe one day I'll be able to make my own personal one, but I really enjoyed making this one with y'all.
Yeah.
If we had a little bit more time in between each episode, it would have been even better. But
it's not so much about having more time between episodes. It's more like the perfectionist in me wants, those extra effects and stuff like that. And I could really EQ this like really properly. Like at the very end of the semester, I just started getting into like, okay, let's like mess with the highs and the lows and stuff like that. Cause like before, episodes like 1 through 4, this one's 5 now. So episodes 1 through 4, it was mostly just about, okay, make the cuts. Let's just make it sound good. That's all we got to do. Now I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, now we know how to make a podcast sound good, how to make it sound right. Now let's really get into the nitty gritty, get into the bass and the treble of all these voices. So that's kind of what I want to get into now. And I've heard rumors of an advanced podcasting course, but I haven't heard any official stuff. I've only heard rumors. I don't actually know. I'm just a student. So
it's just
that's above my pay grade.
It's
that's above my pay
just
grade.
a student.
Just a student. But I would so love that. So if anyone's listening to this with the university, please, I really want to learn more about Audition and really want to get into those nitty gritties, man.
Please. Begging. One of the reasons I took this podcast, it's really funny because I didn't even realize my laptop was a potato whenever I signed up. I wanted to learn how to do soundscaping because that's what my podcast I listen to. They do a lot of soundscaping and, like creating that effect as if you're actually there, even though you can't see it. I didn't really get to do, so that's, I guess, a hindsight. I wish I could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of a personal curiosity, when I was editing, because again, that was like my first time ever really using Audition, and I was really curious to see how much of an environment I could build that like actually kept you in there. And it was harder than I thought it would be, because there's almost never not background noise or a sound effect. Like nearly every single second of that episode has to have some sort of ambient noise, because like if you're sitting in a room, there's ambient noise, there's pens clicking, there's air, there's fans, there's things that make you feel like you're in a place. And like kind of discovering what a lack of that sounds like, it was actually really interesting to me, kind of like on a personal interest level.
I will say the first little trick I learned with Audition was muting all the other tracks to make the echo go away, and which was like just a really simple thing.
Oh yeah, I just deleted the other ones. Like I would section them, and then I would just delete that.
Yeah, that's another good way. I like to leave them there just so I could kind of move everything uniformly. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was like the first little trick I learned, and ever since then I was like, all right, I'm gonna love this thing so much. That was really fun. What else can I do? Oh yeah, rub my hands together a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, let's go.
I'm plotting.
Yeah, right. It's awesome. But yeah, I'm sad that it's coming to an end. Like I really want to keep going with this. I kind of am too. Man, I really want to edit more, and this class really made me realize how much I love audio editing. So I'm really thankful for it. So
yeah, like if we could keep up, maybe not Aghosta University specifically, but maybe another like fantasy like podcast.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Yeah, like then I would totally be all for it. Maybe not on a week by week basis, but like maybe
a little more loosey goosey.
Yeah, like either
every
once,
other situation.
Maybe whenever you feel like it.
Once or twice a month, or even just once a month, I'd be happy, because then we would have the time to really like get into it and please the perfectionist within ourselves.
Right.
True.
Addison couldn't join us today. She had some stuff come up, but she's not here, unfortunately. But she is involved with Aghosta University as well. She produced and edited and did some voices for us too. So shout out to Addison. Good job from all of us.
Shout out.
All right. So I think that's all we have. Isabel, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, I can totally do it. All right. Thank you for listening to today's podcast of Aghosta University Behind the Scenes. We had today's host, which was myself, Isabel Brown, Schneider Hadfield, and Cody Robertson, and in spirit, Addison Colvin. Aghosta University is part of the Comcats Podcast Network at Aghosta University. The ideas and opinions expressed during this podcast are those of the students enrolled in COM 3340, podcasting and audio production, and do not reflect of those of Aghosta University. Thank you so much for listening, guys. It's been wonderful to be with y'all and invest in stories here. And I appreciated getting to work with all of you.
Same.